Hey guys, we're back here again, and it's the finale of this long Iron Maiden journey we've been going through. We started off thinking, hey, it's going to be 16 albums we're dealing with. But then all of a sudden that single popped up last month, and then the album came out this month. So we're at 17 albums, which is, I believe our second longest discography we've covered, Judas Priest being 18 albums. So yeah, I ain't afraid to tackle the big ones. And we're also at the end of the video going to announce the next band I'll be looking at. So stay tuned and, check that out at the end. I'm pretty hyped for this next one we're going to be doing. But with that being said, here we go. Our Iron Maiden ranking. Number 17. This is probably not to any surprise anybody, but you guys kind of saw me roast this thing a little bit here. No Prayer for the Dying, 1990. And used to, for me, I had this ranked above the Blaze albums. But man, I tell you what, just coming back to it again years later, I never really listened to it a lot. Did a lot of re-listens to this thing to begin with. I always liked the song Hooks in You, which of course Adrian, that was one of the main ones he wrote, of course. And I didn't know that before liking it, but it just shows how great of a songwriter they were missing out on having him along. Because, of course, he was not featured on the album. But, you got Holy Smoke is ridiculous. I don't like that song. It's a joke. I don't like Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter that much. I like the version better that was on the Nightmare on Elm Street 5 soundtrack that Bruce did by himself. But I'm okay with the title track. It's alright. Mother Russia's okay. Hooks in You, like I said, that's the best one. I do really like Tail Gunner. So this is not a horrible album. So that just goes to show you, Maiden doesn't have a horrible album in their discography. They don't. But this is just, it's not that great. And it's not one I'm going to want to come back to often. I never really have a lot to pass, and it's probably going to keep that way. So there weren't really, if anything, I ended up liking this less this go around, which was kind of a sad thing. But, The Assassin, I also want to point out that one, and Run Silent, Run Deep. Another couple of cool tracks there. So it's got those ones it has on there that's pretty good. They're damn good. But then the rest is a lot of filler, a lot of stuff that's just not memorable in the slightest. But there's my brief roast of that. You want the full effect? You go check out that album review. So now we've got number 16. The first Bayley album, of course, this came out in 1995. Band took a little bit of a hiatus there after they were struggling, and Bruce, they just wanted to go different directions. Adrian had left, at that on No Prayer for the Dying right at the beginning of the 90s, and then Bruce leaves. So it's like, what do you do? Well, Steve Harris ends up going through a dark time in his life, getting a divorce, and writing the damn darkest album. Or if not, if it's not the darkest, it's one of them. And, you're talking just very dark themes, very brooding feel that, I used to hate this thing, but your taste grows and evolves, and I've come to appreciate it over the years. So, it does go on a little too long. I think they could have cut some time. The run time is like 70 minutes. And I'm fine with the long album, but there's a lot of stuff that's very, too similar on here. But you've got Sign of the Cross. That is an epic freaking track to open up with. Lord of the Flies, Man on the Edge. Then you kind of lose me here in the middle with Fortunes of War, The Aftermath, Judgment of Heaven. But then it starts picking up again though, because you get Blood on the World's Hands and Edge of Darkness, and then you end it kind of mediocre again. So this album is kind of a mixed bag. But what it does great, it does fucking awesome. Okay, so I do like this album. Blaze obviously doesn't have the tenor of Bruce and can't hit those high notes. But you know what? It's okay that this is a different album. I get it if people don't like it. There's still a lot of haters, but I have seen over the years online a lot of people kind of come around and start to appreciate this for what it is. It still ranks low, but it's a solid record. All right. Now we're looking at number 15. The next Blaze Bayley one, 1998's Virtual 11. Really cool and colorful looking album cover there. And on this one here, you see, and I was talking to somebody in the comments on my review of this, and he was saying how he preferred X Factor better, and I see where he's coming from. Because, But I think this one, they cut the runtime down like 20 minutes, and it really saved this thing. You open up with the really cool, fast-paced future reel, and then right off the bat, you get a problem after that. I'm talking about The Angel and the Damn Gambler. Because it could have been such a cool song, has cool moments, but then you just repeat that same line over and over and over again to where I'm like, dude, just shut up, I get it. And that is really the biggest miss on this album. Because you get Lightning Strikes Twice is a good one. The Klansman is beautiful, especially when Bruce sings it, live. It's just incredible. I love The Educated Fool, Don't Look to the Eyes of a Stranger, Como Estas Amigos, to end it. Very beautiful and passionate song. And you've got the When Two Worlds Collide, which is okay. Not one of my favorites off here. But yeah, more well-rounded album and a more polished album, even production-wise. So this was really, to me at least, where Blaze got the show off. He even was hitting higher notes than he did. But I will say the X Factor, I see where some people can prefer it for its darker feel and such. But this one, to me, I really dig the production on it, and I just love the songs that they do well on here. Like again, The Klansman's a Maiden classic. So another solid album, not a great one, because some of the other choruses on here do get a little repetitive, but nothing as bad as The Angel and the Gambler. But a solid album. And this, I don't know how controversial this could be. I get it's the first one. I'll go ahead and tell you, 1980s Iron Maiden, and I like the Paul Di'Anno stuff. He has more of a raspier kind of voice and punkier voice he's got going on, which is cool. It's definitely a the production's really raw on this, but it fits well. I've always dug this album. I think this is a solid one. You open with Prowler, Running Free is super hooky. It's got a really cool drum beat going on. Phantom of the Opera is probably the best track on this thing. Very proggy. It kind of shows, where the direction which the band would head. You've got Charlotte the Harlot. And then, of course, the title track that is a mainstay in their live sets still to this day, Iron Maiden. And, the debut of Eddie on any type of media. Well, no, on an LP, because, of course, there were those singles coming out. But, it's a great album. Where, you jump from some okay ones to a just straight out great album. But it does rank low, because look at Maiden's discography. So, all right, so let me make sure. 17, 16, 15, 14. Number 13 here. Okay, just making sure. I don't want to get it out of whack. We're talking Killers, their second album, and that one may be controversial to some people because I know how loved this thing is. You get the iconic album cover. I got a t-shirt on it. And I do love this album. This is Paul Di'Anno's finest hour and would be his last hour in the band. Adrian Smith joined the guitar duo up in here. You've got Wrathchild. I mean, who doesn't love that track? It's hard not to get hooked on that one. Murders in the Rue Morgue. I mean, dude, you take the hookiness that first album had going, add a little bit more of a metal tone than a punky tone, and you've got Killers. I love Genghis Khan. That's a really cool track. Oh man, the title track's got a brutal riff going on in it. Purgatory, Drifter. This is a just incredible album that, let's say the band ended here with Di'Anno and Bruce never came, this would still be regarded as legendary. And I totally get it. But just the Bruce stuff, besides No Prayer, just outmatches the Paul Di'Anno stuff for me. And I know it is that way with a lot of people, but I know a lot of people would be like, dude, Killers is just such an iconic thing, you gotta rank it higher. Well, I see where you're coming from, but that's just not how I play it. Alright, now we're going to talk about number 12 here. And now we're going to skip way far ahead up in 2010 with The Final Frontier. And I do really like this album. But of the modern era, 2000s and up Maiden, it doesn't quite have a signature sound like, some of the previous albums of the 2000s and even the later ones have. I love El Dorado and the opening track, the Final Frontier, very spacey feel with that bass line that Steve Harris is killing. Mother of Mercy's got a really cool verses in particular. Coming Home's a little cheesy, but I kind of like it anyways. You know, The Alchemist. I mean, damn. Isle of Avalon, Starblind. I'm gonna list them all because they're all great songs. The Talisman's one of my favorites. The Man Who Would Be King probably ranks a little bit lower, but it's still really good. And then you end it with the best freaking track. One of their most beautiful storytelling moments of When the Wild Wind Blows. I mean, man, that thing will bring freaking tears to your eyes. It's that, you know, passionate. But you see, with all these great songs, again, it doesn't quite stick out as much as some of those other albums. And it's kind of hard to even think of why. Maybe just the production was too similar, or they played it a little safe, and maybe they played it a little safe with some of the songwriting on here. But I really do dig it. I gave it a lot of praise in my review, and I even like this more than I used to, although it probably kind of ranked around the same spot. But yeah, that's number 12, Final Frontier. Number 11. We're talking about the last album of Bruce until he would come back in 2000. We're talking about 1992's double album, Fear of the Dark. Okay, this thing, it's bulky and it's got a lot of great stuff on it. A lot of people just assume this thing would be horrible because they heard No Prayer and just want to be like, oh, 90s Maiden is awful, But this one doesn't really need to be associated with those because Bruce, at this point in the band, he went out on top, Be Quick or Be Dead. Really cool music video to it as well, and I love the, that's just a really cool fast pace, just like the typical Maiden openers. From here, Eternity's alright, not one of my favorites. Afraid to Shoot Strangers, one of the best tracks on here. Childhood's End is incredible. Wasting Love. Oh my God, The Fugitive, the Chains of Misery, and The Apparition. That is, that's where you start that second, the second part of the album. Those three in a row. And then my favorite song on here, Judas Be My Guide. I mean, damn. But then you get Weekend Warrior, which is a pretty... That sounded like something left over from No Prayer for the Dying, where they were going for that real commercial tone and just really corny lyrics and stuff, being like partying and stuff. That's not really what Maiden do, but they were experimenting with that a little bit in the 90s. So that's definitely the weakest track on here. And of course, the epic title track, Fear the Dark, closes it. One of their most iconic songs, and just the bone-chilling riff that they got going on with those soft tones that Yannick Gers brings to the table. This is a great album. I've always really, really loved it. I've never really had the problems that I see a lot of people have with it. I mean, it's pretty damn heavy. I know it's got its soft spots on like Wasting Love and, Childhood's End and all that, but the Apparition and Judas Be My Guide are hooky and heavy as hell. So that's why this thing's sitting at number 11. All right, guys, top 10 is coming. Let me make sure here. Yep, all right. Number 10. The second album of the Return of Bruce. We're talking about 2003's Dance of Death with that horrible CGI looking album cover. Unfinished, had a cool concept, failed miserably. But don't let that, shoo you away from the music, because Rainmaker, that is definitely one of the most catchiest hooks in that chorus that Maiden's ever produced. Call me crazy, but that's just, I love it. And No More Lies, it may have kind of a repetitive chorus, but it does it in a way that it's okay, if that makes any sense. Like, it pushes the emotion that is added behind each, strain of Bruce singing No More Lies, just adds to the impact that the song brings. Dance of Death, the title track, oh my God, I love the orchestral, section, which is a big part of the production in general on this album, is the whole, orchestral kind of ballroom feel, kind of like the album's going for. I love New Frontier. That's a very underrated track on here. I mean, the riff is killer, and it gets you pumped. Passchendaele. That one, oh, that's another epic off here. Age of Innocence is beautiful. That is a beautiful song. It's not even a ballad, but just, it's just pushing forward a positive message. And then The Journeyman is one of the best stories ever told in a Maiden song, period. I love that song. That was a perfect way to close this album. That gets made fun of a lot just because the album cover. But the music is incredible. Enough to make my top 10. All right. Number 9. We're going with another modern one here. 2006, A Matter of Life and Death. And man, oh man, this one, talk about that dark feel. The only one that rivals the X Factor and possibly being the darkest Maiden album. Not only the album cover being dark colors, but the music and the lyrics itself, all about war. And I mean, man, you open it up with the speedy, different world. That's really the only bit of fast pace you get on here. You get These Colors Don't Run, Brighter Than 1,000 Suns, of course, about the nuclear bomb. I love The Pilgrim. For the Greater Good of God, that's the best song on here. Bruce's vocals were just peak up in here. Lord of Light. And I do get a lot of people, they don't like the kind of muddier production of it or whatever, but I think it really adds to the album actually on this one. And there are a couple of tracks that, like everybody loves the Reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg, and I do like that song, but I feel like it's a lot of build up and not really like a big climax to where it's like, here's the grand reveal and like where the song, it doesn't have like a really good hooky chorus for me. And The Legacy is a cool closer, but not one of my favorites either. But yeah, this album, this is one of those ones that as you listen to it, the more and more it just it grows on you. And that's what kind of Maiden have done these past couple of years, is that, you'll be like, oh damn, that's a great album. And then you'll come back and the songs are so long and epic that you hear more and more and discover more and more, and you're like, oh wow, that's genius, So that's definitely kind of what started that whole trend for them, at least for me. All right. Now we've got just a second, guys. I just really don't want to get it out of order and have to edit the video. 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. All right, number 8. This one is probably their most, I would say maybe their second most or their most popular album, and spawned one of their biggest hits ever. Number 8 here, we're talking about Number of the Beast, and one of the coolest freaking album covers, Eddie puppeting the devil, while the devil's puppeting another Eddie. So it's like Eddie's the real one in control, and giving the devil the illusion of control. It's just a cool, concept in the album cover. I love the colors, how they pop on this thing. And man, this was the debut album for Bruce on vocals, and you open it up with Invaders, which is definitely an underrated track that doesn't really get talked about. Hell of an opener. But Children of the Damned is where you really get to see what Bruce is about. And that second track, oh my god. And then he follows up with The Prisoner. And then 22 Acacia Avenue. That whole first side is just incredible. And then the title track on here, that's a Maiden classic. I love, love, love the riff and the melody of the guitar that Adrian and Dave bring on that one. And Run to the Hills, that's one of their biggest hits, about the Indians and all that. And that's a really cool song. I love the drums, that Clive Burr was on this one. This was Clive Burr's last album. But he does a killer job on that. But that's actually one of my least favorites on here, and not even because it was such a big hit. I don't know. And that was one of the first Maiden songs I'd ever heard, actually. But I think a lot of the other stuff outshines on here, like Hallowed Be Thy Name. That is one of the most epic sounding songs ever. If you want to get somebody in the Maiden, I think that would be a great introductory song to show them how great of a story they can tell, and how epic, and the time changes, and just the melody and the guitar riffs, the vocals. Just that is a perfect track to show somebody. But yeah, Number of the Beast, I've been a fan of this since I heard it. This hosted the first 2 or 3 Maiden tracks I ever heard, Number of the Beast and Run to the Hills. So, number 8, Number of the Beast. Okay. So now number 7. Here's another one that, could be considered a controversial pick, and it used to rank higher for me. But I just feel like some stuff passed it over the years for me. But we're talking about Peace of Mind. Yeah, it's the album that hosts The Trooper. I know The Trooper's a great song. It's one of their biggest hits, and I love it. It's awesome. But, I think there are quite a few songs better than it on here, including the opener, Where Eagles Dare. I mean, talking about like fighting and fighter planes, and you even hear like that machine gun stuff going, like, oh, such a cool effect. Really fast-paced song. This is one of their heavier albums. You get Revelations, which is one of my favorite Maiden songs of all time. And even Bruce actually plays guitar on this, so this is kind of a prelude, to what would end up happening later on 2000 when they got 3 guitar players. Well, they had 3 guitar players on this song because Bruce was doing the acoustic stuff. Love, love, love that song. It's beautiful. Flight of Icarus, another really cool one, and Die With Your Boots On. Damn, that one, when the vocal work of Bruce right there is some of the best. But see, side 2, it starts to dip a little bit. You open it with The Trooper, which is just a bang, shoots off. And I love Still Life. That's a very underrated track. But then you get like Quest for Fire, probably my least favorite off here. To Tame a Land, which closes it, is one of my least favorites actually. It's good. And then Sun and Steel in between those two. I mentioned out of order for some reason, I don't know. But Sun and Steel is pretty cool. But again, those final like 3 tracks there kind of lowered this one a bit for me. I kind of had to, and this was a very hard ranking for me. But so I had to really like break these down and be like, okay, so, and like weigh them against each other. And those final three tracks, they're freaking cool, but they just weighed this one down a little bit lower than some of the others for me. But I love Peace of Mind. It's been, I've been jamming to this one for years. All right, let's see here. Number 6. Everybody loves this thing and knows how incredible of a return and what a welcome return. In 2000, when Bruce Dickinson came back to the band as well as Adrian Smith on guitar, so you had the first album that had that 3-headed dragon of guitars, you got Dave, Yannick, and Adrian all on there together. They tear the house down and show, and really utilize having 3 guitar players on this. You open with the Wicker Man, which is really cool. But it's actually one of my least favorites on here. Ghost of the Navigator. I mean, man, that one has got that galloping, that classic galloping Maiden rhythm to it. Brave New World. I mean, the clean tones on this thing are some of the best freaking clean tones on a guitar you'll ever hear. And Brave New World at the beginning of that will show you that. I mean, I love Dream of Mirrors. That's a very underrated track on here. Out of the Silent Planet. Oh my God. And then The Thin Line Between Love and Hate is one of the best Maiden songs ever that closes it out. Epic and a beautiful, beautiful message. And Bruce, that may be his best damn vocal work is on that song right there. And if you heard the song, you know what I'm talking about. And that breakdown, and then at the ending, he just hits some of the most, it just shakes you to your core. The notes he hits on that thing. I freaking love it. Brave New World, ever since I heard this, whenever I first, I only listened to the 80s Maiden stuff for quite some time until I was like, maybe I'll listen to the 2000 stuff, and I was just blown the hell away. And it's thanks to this thing. All right, guys, top 5. Top 5. And yeah, I know you've not seen some of the ones you maybe thought you'd see a little bit lower. But I talked about how much I loved it in the review, and I'm just going to keep talking about how much I love it because number 5 is The Book of Souls. I've been a huge fan of this thing. And, Bruce, of course, had throat cancer in this album. You can't tell. That does not sound like a human with cancer at all, in the damn slightest. Bruce with cancer is better than most humans without cancer. And that's just the harsh reality of it. That's how much of a damn legend he is. And he knew something was going on with his throat, but he was like, I'm going to finish my album first. Sorry. I ain't going for any treatments. He's freaking, that's Bruce Dickinson for you. And, you open up with the really cool Mayan themed kind of Eternity Should Fail. Speed of Light's one of my least favorites off here. It's cool, but it didn't really fit with the overall theme of the album as much as some of the others. The Red and the Black, oh my god. That one right there, that acoustic bass. Well, I think that may even be the first time we get that from Steve Harris, which he would carry that on to the next album. When the River Runs Deep has one of the coolest and riffs and just fun riffs the band has ever produced. The title track, oh my god. About that culture that just disappeared, and they don't know why, but there's traces of it. And the lyrics, and that may be the best vocal performance from Bruce on this album. Death or Glory is kind of ranks a little low for me, and so does Shadows of the Valley, but Tears of a Clown's really cool. That one gets a lot of hate online, but I like that one. The Man of Sorrows is alright. In fact, I mix up Shadows of the Valley, I love that one. The Man of Sorrows is I'm alright on. More ballady. But of course, The Empire of the Clouds is a grand masterpiece, and to this date, the longest song this band has produced at 18 minutes and something seconds. But damn, is it a ride, because, you're talking about the Zeppelin that crashed and how it was built, and Bruce is playing a grand piano. That is one of the most beautiful songs, and these guys just show their storytelling yet again in that track. And that is a prime example of that. And a common trend here is that a lot of times it's those freaking last tracks on these modern albums that are telling these stories. And that are really stealing the show for a lot of this. But the Book of Souls, I love it. I love the production on it. Very cool, very heavy. And I just love this album. Always have. And yeah, guys, I know this has been a very divisive album since it came out. But you heard what I thought about it. I freaking love it. And it just shot its way up here. The number 4, Sinjutsu. The newest record that came out this month. And I've tried, like I said, I put it down for a little bit and then came back to it to try to avoid any recency bias or whatever. Maybe this is recency bias and I don't even know it, but I mean, damn, I just love this album. I think it's incredible. It's like Book of Souls Part 2. I mean, they both even have this special book edition, but they have very similar production. This one possibly a little bit heavier. And you get this really cool, like, whistly sound synth on a lot of the songs. Like on Stratego. The two singles that dropped, Stratego and The Writing on the Wall, are definite highlights. Great choices for singles. Title track is actually my least favorite in the album, but it's cool. Time Machine is on a whole nother level. Showed that Maiden can still be creative as ever. You get, the Death of the Celts, which is like a sequel to, the Klansman off Virtual 11. The Parchment, one of my favorites. I love Days of Future Past, really cool, fun track, and kind of like When the River Runs Deep, a really cool and fun riff. And you end it with possibly my favorite song on here, Hell on Earth. It's either between that or Time Machine for me, or The Parchment. Those are game changers, and just like A Matter of Life and Death, the more I've listened to it, the more I've kind of sunk my teeth into it and dissected this thing. It just, it gets into your blood, and you really feel the power and the emotion of this album. And it's just, man, hopefully this is not their last one, but if it is, they went on freaking top. I love Sinjutsu. I've seen some people say it's their favorite. Some people say it's their absolute worst. So it's been a very divisive album in the community, and I know us Maiden fans out there we really like dissect these albums, but this one for me is right up here near the top at number 4. And if you guys know Maiden, you know the legendary 3 here, and this was hard, especially for these number 3, number 2 spots. Number 3, that used to be my number 2, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Man, the super cool concept about, the seventh son of a seventh son, the Phoenix, the chosen child. Super cool kind of theme. It wasn't a full-on concept album, but it kept kind of the same theme throughout. Moonchild is one of the freaking best Maiden openers, if not the best ones I've ever heard. I love the guitar tone on this. it really picks up and evolves the Somewhere in Time guitar tone. And they kept the synth going, which divided a lot of people in the 80s, but people have come around to appreciate these, proggier and synthier Maiden albums. Infinite Dreams is incredible. Starts off acoustic with a lot of these different time changes. Can I Play with Madness was a hit off here, and it was one of the more commercial ones. But my God, that's how you do it right. Appeal to the commercial, but don't stray too far away from what you are. The Evil That Men Do, that's been one of my favorite Maiden songs for a long time, ever since I heard this album, and it still is to this day. That, and the solo, oh man, I got goosebumps just thinking about it. Title track is incredible. You got The Prophecy, The Clairvoyant, and Only the Good Die Young. Those three are awesome, but I do think, Seventh Son and Back to Moonchild, all of those tracks in between do top it. So that's what really kind of pushed it below Somewhere in Time for me. It was that Somewhere in Time ends stronger in my opinion, but these are all great. Not a bad song, no filler at all. Love this album, and this was the last one of the 80s that these guys dropped, and that's why this was the album that made No Prayer for the Dying such a disappointment, because people were like, I want more of that. So love this album, and it's even my brother's favorite one, and I see where he's coming from. Now, number 2. This used to be my number 3 and 4, but we're talking about Somewhere in Time. Love all the Easter eggs from the previous albums on the album cover. Futuristic Eddie. And the guitar tone again, I mean, both the guitar tone on this one and Seventh Son have very similar feel to them. Very clean, yet distorted. And man, Caught Somewhere in Time is such a cool opener. It gives you that really futuristic feel. Wasted Years is great. That was one of the hits off here, but it's great. Just like Can I Play with Madness, they didn't abandon what they're about, but still, produced a commercial hit. Sea of Madness is, oh my God, that is on another level. That breakdown, that's an underrated track. And the guitar tone of that solo, that just might rank up as possibly in like my top 5 Maiden solos of all time. Heaven Can Wait's really cool. The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, oh my God. Feels like you're on a freaking marathon, because how fast it's going and all that, and man, that galloping Maiden riff style and rhythm style just to a faster beat. Stranger in a Strange Land is one of the most badass Maiden songs, with that bass coming in and just the synth in the verses with just Bruce's vocals and the quick little lick from Adrian or Adrian and Dave with those chords they play. Love it. Deja Vu, another kind of fast one, and you end it with Alexander the Great, which is actually probably my least favorite on here, but it's awesome. I love that song, but I think just the other ones capture me more. And yeah, you guessed it, guys. Number 1. Maybe you could have guessed it by my review, but I try to not spoil it in the reviews. But I just, I get googly-eyed talking about this thing. This thing changed my life. In my musical. This was one of the foundations of where my musical taste began, was Powerslave. One of my favorite pieces of art on an album ever, and one of my favorite albums of all time. This is like Desert Island, 5 albums you're bringing, this is going to be one of them. From front to back, it's just, start with Aces High, super fast. This might be the heaviest Maiden album out there, but it's the perfect blend. We'll just run through all the tracks, again, just like the review, because they're all mean something and do something and add to the album. Aces High, super fast opener, and one of the coolest Maiden riffs out there. 2 Minutes to Midnight. My God, a little bit lengthier. And, you've got that amazing breakdown solo they got rolling. Oh, love that. And just the killer riff and the bends they're doing on that. 2 of those right off the bat were the biggest hits off this album, and just remain iconic Maiden tracks. Then you get their final instrumental they ever did was Lost for Words, which is kind of a funny, title for it. Lost for Words, Big Aura. And it's a really cool instrumental, and it is my favorite instrumental of it. I can remember, it's an instrumental, but I can remember note for note in my head and play it in my head and know it like the back of my hand, just like a song with lyrics. That's how you know it's a good instrumental, and this one does it. Flash of the Blade may be the most badass opening of a Maiden song ever. Those hammer-ons that are just heavy. Oh, man. And then you get, like, it sounds like there's sword fighting going on in the solos, that they're dueling Dave and Adrian going back and forth. And it's similar in the final track of that side one with the duelist. More that kind of trading off. It's up a little bit more on that because the solos just keep going. Then Back to the Village. That's one of the heaviest Maiden songs ever, especially at the end where Bruce is just, back in the village in the back. Like, I love that. So freaking good. And then here's my favorite Maiden song probably ever, Powerslave, the title track. That, whenever I got to that track on this album, on my first ever listen, I had it's like the world stopped turning. This was the album that, they started really showing these lengthier songs. And, Powerslave has that Egyptian riff going. I love that. But then that breakdown where those cleans come in and the bass from Harris. And then the solo just begins to evolve and evolve. That is just a pitch-perfect song for me. And so was the next one, the 13-minute track, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. That's where they began this epic storytelling. They did it on the other albums, but this is where it really began to be a prominent feature on their albums. And that thing, even like it makes you really feel like you're on that ship, especially in the middle of it where it's just the bass, and you hear that kind of effect of the ship just creaking and rocking, and then it picks right back up into those awesome, awesome heavy verses and choruses from Bruce. That's right, guys. Powerslave, my favorite Iron Maiden album of all time. That didn't change, and it hasn't changed. You never know what the future holds, but I don't see it changing. A lot of these things can change, but this one changed my life and, formulated my musical opinion and my, my music taste big time. Changed the game for me. But with that being said, guys, I'm announcing that next band we're talking about. I kind of like to do, after a big one like that, maybe some smaller ones like we did Mr. and I did like a one-off album with GTR. This time we're going to take a little bit of a different turn too, We're going to be talking about a 90s band. And they're real proggy. But they're weird proggy. Like they're almost psychedelic prog metal. It's kind of hard to put a genre in them. Or label a genre and throw it on them. But we're talking about Tool. They got 6 albums. I'm a huge fan. So much prog greatness. So much epic length songs like these, Maybe that's what got me in the mood to do them was, I love those, like, give me a 20-minute song and I'm down. I love it. Especially when you construct it like a piece of art, like Maiden does, like Tool does, and like Yes, and a lot of those prog bands do. But Tool is like on a different, they got a whole different vibe than from most prog bands. That's why, again, if you know Tool, they're hard to label a genre in. But I'm super hyped to be looking at them and then ranking them. That'll be a quick one. And then, of course, I'll be tackling another really big discography after that. But we're not going to get to that yet. That'll be on the Tool ranking video. But next time, we'll be taking a look at Tool's very first EP. I think it was EP. I'm drawing a blank. I just ran through all those. But I'm pretty sure it was EP. Of course, we're talking about Opiate. And so that one's pretty kind of gets overlooked in their discography. So it'll be pretty interesting, even for me, to kind of go back and look at it. So I'm really hyped for that. Thanks, guys, for tagging along on this Maiden ride. It's been a long one. It's been a fun one. It always is a little bittersweet, concluding these really big discographies. It's like we really accomplished something, it feels like. So, and, keep up those comments, guys. I've been loving interacting with you guys down there. Makes my day when that happens. I'll be like at work or just chilling at the house, and I'll just be answering as soon as those things pop up because I love talking about this stuff. So I would love to hear everyone else's rankings and how different they may be from mine or how similar. That's the most fun thing and the best thing about music is that, we all can appreciate stuff and, hear stuff differently. So tune in next time, guys. We're talking about Tool. That may not be your thing, but, maybe if you want to listen along with me as we go through these, you may end up liking them. But I know Tool does have a great fan base as well. And, so you guys who are fans of them, tag along. Thanks, guys, for watching this, 40-minute video. That's a Maiden video for you, and tune in next time. Thanks.